Seoul, South Korea, September 11th, 2025. The South Korean government confirmed Thursday that the release of hundreds of its citizens detained during a sweeping US immigration raid at a Hyundai-LG battery plant was underway. Officials said the group will return home by Friday afternoon in what has quickly escalated into a sensitive diplomatic and economic flashpoint. The detainees, numbering among the 475 arrested last week at the plant under construction in Georgia, were largely skilled South Korean professionals brought in to support the project. The raid, carried out by US immigration authorities, stunned both governments and immediately cast a shadow over Seoul's ambitious investment plans in the United States. While US President Donald Trump ultimately stopped short of deporting the workers, the South Korean government said it decided to repatriate them because they were in a state of shock. The event has raised alarm about the stability of future industrial cooperation. The operation, involving Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE officers and Homeland Security investigators, unfolded in early September with heavily documented scenes of workers being escorted, arrested, and loaded onto buses. Images from the site showed long lines of employees holding documents under the watchful eyes of armed officers. Officials in Seoul reacted quickly. By Thursday, they confirmed arrangements for flights to bring home the detained nationals. While the US refrained from expulsion orders, the South Korean leadership expressed frustration at both the manner and the message of the raid. President Lee Jae Myung did not mince words. In an early morning press briefing, he labeled the raid bewildering. His comments reflected not just concern for the individuals, but for the broader trajectory of South Korean investment in the American economy. At the press conference in Seoul, cameras tracked Lee as he delivered his remarks, flanked by aides and reporters. Lee Jae Myung, president of South Korea, said, "From a business perspective, setting up local factories in the United States inevitably raises concerns such as, will we face all kinds of disadvantages or difficulties in the future? Is this really something we should do?" These concerns could significantly affect future direct investment in the United States. The president's statement underscored a growing unease within Seoul's political and corporate circles. South Korea has long been one of Washington's most critical security allies and a powerhouse in global manufacturing, particularly in autos and electronics. But Lee's candid remarks pointed to an emerging question: whether the United States remains a secure environment for large-scale South Korean investment. In recent months, Seoul pledged an eye-watering $350 billion investment into US manufacturing and energy projects. Much of this was spurred by Washington's shifting trade and tariff policies under Trump, who previously threatened restrictions on imported vehicles and battery components. South Korean conglomerates from Hyundai to LG to Samsung have responded by expanding their American footprint, often building state-of-the-art plants in the South and Midwest. These ventures typically bring in South Korean engineers and specialized workers during early project phases, a practice that industry insiders admit often relies on visa workarounds to prevent costly delays. Yet the raid in Georgia, targeting precisely such a workforce, now casts a shadow over these projects. The sight of South Korean professionals in handcuffs was not just a diplomatic embarrassment, but also a chilling warning to executives planning future operations. The timing of the incident is especially delicate. The US and South Korea maintain a military alliance at the heart of the Pacific Rim's security architecture. Joint military exercises, intelligence cooperation, and defense coordination have all deepened in recent years as tensions with North Korea and China continue to mount. Against this backdrop, the detention of hundreds of South Korean nationals in the US risks being seen as more than just an immigration enforcement issue. Analysts warn it could strain the perception of trust and reciprocity between two nations that rely on each other, not just for security, but for critical supply chains in batteries, semiconductors, and green technologies. For the detainees themselves, the ordeal was harrowing. Seoul's Ministry of Foreign Affairs confirmed that many workers were deeply shaken by the experience, with some requiring medical and psychological support. Officials said the decision to repatriate them quickly was made to prevent further distress. At the press conference, President Lee balanced criticism with reassurance, noting that South Korea remains committed to partnership but would seek greater clarity from Washington. The government is expected to demand explanations over how the raid was conducted and whether similar actions might occur in the future. Executives and industry representatives voiced alarm after Lee's remarks. A senior trade analyst in Seoul told AFP that the raid was a wake-up call for South Korean firms that had believed investment in the US was sheltered from political volatility. Another business leader, speaking anonymously, noted that Trump's decision not to pursue expulsions does not erase the damage. The optics of engineers being detained could reverberate across boardrooms in Seoul, potentially slowing or diverting billions in planned US investment. For now, South Korea is focusing on the safe return of its citizens. Flights carrying groups of the released workers are scheduled to land in Seoul by Friday afternoon. Officials said each will undergo debriefings and support services. Diplomatically, Seoul is expected to raise the matter through official channels, though observers say it is unlikely to escalate into open confrontation given the depth of military and economic ties. Instead, the incident may prompt a recalibration. Quiet negotiations over visa arrangements, labour practices, and future project safeguards. Still, President Lee's stark warning about investment cannot be ignored. His statement that such incidents could significantly affect future direct investment in the United States will likely echo through US policy circles as Washington weighs its approach to foreign labour and industrial partnerships. For the thousands of South Koreans still working at US plants, uncertainty lingers. While Thursday's release brought relief, the shadow of the raid continues to loom, an incident that has transformed from a single immigration enforcement action into a symbol of the fragile balance between economic cooperation and political friction.